All right, we're going to talk about cash flow. What is it? Why does it make the world go round? All the ins and outs with this example. So imagine yourself running, right? You need air to be able to run, even just to live at the bare minimum. If you are being strangled or choked, or if there's like a piece of food in your throat, it kind of, gives you that sense of anxiety of like, oh my gosh, I could die. And in some cases, you do. And in the same way, if you run out of money, cash, that green, then your business dies. And that's not a good thing. I think it's something like 8 out of 10 businesses stopped or ended because they ran out of cash, right? So you need money to be able to continue your business. I think of it like this. The best athletes are the ones who can extract the most oxygen from thin air. You have the runners who train at really high elevations so that their lungs get really good at pulling oxygen out of the air. And the best businesses are the ones who are able to extract the most value from thin air, right? If you can create a situation with very little effort on both sides of the contract where it benefits both people mutually, so very low cost, very high benefit. That's the ultimate situation, right? So we should be striving to make those situations more often because it's easier to scale if it's low cost, low effort, and it's more profitable. I don't see why you would try to focus on, unless you're trying to do a high volume on something that's very low profit, right? I heard something the other day that it's actually kind of interesting how the market works. Like in a market, if you price based on like hourly wage or different things like that, you'll always be pushed down until you get to the bare minimum. That's how we get to like a minimum wage. This is another cool way to think of it, right? Let's say you're earning a minimum wage job. If you don't spend your money on things that make money, you will always work a minimum wage job. And okay, why is that the case, right? Because if you're in that position that you're working a minimum wage, you're only going to be given something like just enough to be able to live on it, right? And I think that should be that shouldn't be a standard, but if you think about it, that's how it's going to go, right? It's the way the world is, and you can try to fight to change it, and you can also try to change your own situation by getting out of that, right? That way, either or, you're covered. If you supply your own value, or at least half of it comes from your business, half of it comes from this or like the place that you work at, then it gives you a little bit more ability to breathe, right? To be less anxious. So a bunch of talking points there. I was going to say one thing about money as the ultimate conversion rate, but I don't think that it's money. I think it's trust or love. That's the ultimate conversion rate, because if you don't trust someone, then money is trust. But more than that, if you fully embody trust, if you trust someone wholeheartedly with your whole heart, with whole being, you love them, right? And then that's what a wife is, a husband, a friend, a brother. It's someone that you trust wholeheartedly, but it's love. That's a whole nother talking point. Let's go back to this concept of cash flow. That sounded so weird. Let's go back to this concept of cash flow. You need it to keep your business alive. Now, the way I've been structuring my woodworking business right now is, how do I lower my cost? How do I lower my overhead? And I think you should do that with any business. This is something that I'll carry with me wherever I go. What situation can I create where I have no cost? Because when yesterday, if you watched the video I literally recorded it 5 minutes ago. I just didn't post one yesterday, so I'm recording 2 today. But if you watched that video, I talked about how I had breakfast with one of the leaders in my industry, and he gave me some extremely valuable information. It was incredible, right? One of the things he said is, be wary of taking money from investors, because now you have someone who's your boss. Even if you own the company, whoever owns the money owns the company, right? So, or has an influence on the company. if you have investors, they can force your hand sometimes. And that's not always the best case scenario because maybe they don't have the same interest in mind, right? Maybe you want to build a business, but they want just to cash out on the profits over time and stay at this level because they're in need of or in want of more cash, whatever it is, right? I was going to say something genius probably, but I entirely forgot what I was going to say. That whole idea of I met up with like a mentor of sorts, cash flow. It'll come to me in just a second. Forcing your hand, choking you. What was it? Oh, okay. That was one of the things he said. The other, that is just the case, that fact of like 8 out of 10 businesses close down because they have no money. If you can create a situation where it's very low cost, you don't have someone forcing your hand. That's the point I was trying to make. If you don't take investors and you don't use other people's money as often, maybe what he said yesterday was a loan from a bank is fine, but a loan from a friend or a loan like an investment of sorts is not always good because that's a personal relationship. A bank relationship is a transaction at the end of the day. They get money by giving you money. They don't care what you do with it. It's a fixed interest rate, right? They have interest in your personal business because it's their personal money. They're just leveraging money. They don't care who it goes to as long as they make a profit, which is the way the world works sometimes. But one thing that can force your hand is those personal relationships that are built on money, that like investments of sorts. The other is when you have costs, too much overhead. And this is the point I'm trying to make. Cash flow is when you are able to live without the stress of paying next month's bills. So whether it's in your business or in your personal life, you want to be able to have money, making money for you, and not be using every bit of profit that you make from your business or from your job just to pay rent and get by the next month. Okay, a little bit more on this. Why do most people stay in a minimum wage job most of their life? People talk about like you need to build up a skill set. Like, yes, that's true, right? But it's a little bit more difficult to build a skill set if you're stuck in this cycle of always trying to pay rent. This is what I was in last year. Part of the reason why I moved back in with my mom for a couple months, just so I can kind of like get my head above water, and then use that profit, which that's what I talked about yesterday. So I was using, I didn't really talk about it, but I was using profits from my business to kind of reintroduce some more profit back into the business in like my own investment of sorts into the business. I'm jumping around here a lot. Let's get back to the heart of cash flow. People who work a minimum wage job their entire lives spend money on things that don't make them money. So how can you get out of that cycle? Like I just said, I moved back with my mom so I could lower my costs for a couple months. That way I could use that to put it towards an investment that's going to make me money in the woodworking business, right? And so I know that it'll pay off down the road. So you need to ask yourself, like, what is something that maybe I'll struggle today, but my future self will thank me, right? It's like paying next month's rent, or like next year's rent. Like if you had to live for a year in a car, which like I've had to sleep in a car a bunch, never been forced to. I've slept in a car a bunch on the different trips that I've gone on or things of that nature. Luckily, I've never been in the situation where I've had to live out of my car yet. Things could change. But let's say that was the only thing on the table. It's like if I want to get out of this cycle of never having money, then I got to cut my costs entirely and be able to use that money and put it towards a profit of some sorts. That's a topic that I guess we'll talk about a different day because it takes a while to explain the different pathways you can take. And also, since I've never done it, I probably shouldn't give advice on the matter because I've never been there. I've never actually done it. But I can give advice. Well, I'm jumping around a lot. At the end of the day, cash flow is the most vital business function So you need to think of your business or your personal finances as the air that you breathe and find ways to make value out of thin air with very low cost and very high profit, or even just a little bit of profit, because your profit divided by the risk, that's like the, you know, whether or not I would take this investment. I need to get more articulate. Maybe that's a good thing that these daily videos are doing, is like kind of forcing me to stop pausing every other word and actually articulate out a sentence and what I'm trying to say. I don't know. Hopefully those are some valuable points. I challenge you, how about this? I challenge you to do the same thing that I'm doing. You don't have to post it necessarily, or maybe do, and I'll watch them. Just tag them in the comments. But if you don't end up posting it, just save it as a video journal at the end of each night. What did I do today? And yeah, hopefully you'll get more articulate as well. Let's do this thing. Life could be a dream. If you really work for it, life could be a dream. I'll see you tomorrow.